Welcome to Fic Lab, the free library of your favorite fictions, fanfictions, and many more. Make sure to subscribe and be part of our family. Now let's begin.
Haven't I paid my dues already? Both Carl and Derek were taken back by Sarah's sudden desperation. I'm not some publicity stunt, Derek, I'm an attorney, she quivered. For Pete's sake, I went to UNLV on a scholarship when Dad said I didn't even have to go to school, Derek. I passed the bar. But what have you had me do since I got here, huh? It's been 2 years and Derek raised an eyebrow, which reeled Sarah back to reality. I mean, I know our dads are best friends, Derek, and I'm lucky to be here, so I don't expect any favoritism. Tears welled up in her eyes. But think about all I've done since I got here. Fetch coffee for partners who think of me as some nepo kid. Or handle stupid traffic ticket appeals and just maybe handle petty lawsuits. Any client I bring, you reassign to someone else. Do you know how embarrassing it was when I spent the other day organizing office birthday parties with Carl? Derek leaned in, his expression serious. That's exactly why I chose you for this, Newsome. If anyone can find the truth in this madness, it's you. You have the tenacity and the heart to prove yourself. Sarah stared at him, her skepticism still apparent as she rubbed the tears from her face. Yes, Derek assured firmly. The others see this case the same way you do. But you've got something the others don't. Drive, youth, empathy, and conviction. These hurdles are necessary if you wish to make junior partner one day. But you've been promising me that since we were kids. Sarah protested again, her tears welling up again. You can't keep promising me that. That vacant little office, Derek snapped, causing Sarah's eyes to widen. Garcia, after lunch, please help Newsome move her things there from her cubicle. She gasped, exchanging ecstatic glances with Carl. For real? She'll need it for her meeting with the Ghost Sees Ghost team tomorrow. Now, please, go get prepared. Sarah happily obliged, stuffing the last of her lunch in her mouth as she got up to leave. Carl began to follow, but Derek hinted at him to hang back. She really gets to you, huh? Carl teased as Sarah left the room. Derek had a faint smile. She's a good kid. Always has been, even when we were younger. Besides, it'll keep her off my back about being put on more cases. You know how her dad is. Speaking of which, is he going to be okay with this? Immediately, Derek's smile faded and his eyes narrowed. Call around the other firms. See what the other assistants have to say about this. Lyle Wes and Yiska. Got it. Sarah couldn't stop pacing, that look of mild exasperation and annoyance she was known for plastered on her face. She stopped to check herself in her new mirror one last time, her strawberry hair pulled back in a professional manner. As she adjusted her blazer, her eyes caught the reflection of her quaint new office behind her. It was cozy, with a large window letting in plenty of natural light. The shelves Carl helped move lined the walls and were now filled with legal books and personal knickknacks. In the center was a wooden desk neatly flanked by 2 filing cabinets while her law degree hung proudly behind her office chair. Where Derek was comfortably sitting. You should relax, Derek suggested with a smirk, his tone carrying that polished yet slightly condescending air. Even down to his mannerisms, he always knew how to act like a Johnson. You'll get wrinkles. Sarah shot him a look, the kind that could silence a room. Just saying, Derek responded, raising his hands in mock surrender as he spun around in her new office chair. Where are these guys? They should be here already, Sarah asked as she started pacing again. Maybe you should go over their case more, Derek suggested, instead of pacing around. I already did, she answered. She had spent the whole night studying the files about the murder of Theodore Williams. He was a well-known DJ turned influencer, or influencer turned DJ, and was famous for showcasing his extravagant lifestyle on FaceTube. Even Sarah followed him, with his slicked back hair, charismatic personality, and club hits. He'd travel the world and DJ before interviewing prominent individuals such as celebrities, politicians, and even foreign royalty. That's when Sarah felt the case took a bizarre turn. He was in Vegas for a music festival, when he was found in the penthouse suite of his hotel dead. The hotel room was found with various occult symbols scattered around and a small circle of salt. A photograph showed Teddy's body laid next to the broken salt circle in a macabre way, adding a sinister and mysterious twist to the case. What made the murder even stranger was the lack of signs of struggle from Teddy. The autopsy came back inconclusive, with no evidence of poisoning or internal damage. Just a twisted, contorted facial expression. Avery, on the other hand, showed signs of a struggle. His clothes were torn, and his face was scratched and bruised, with a wild look of unimaginable horror. But none of Avery's DNA was found on Teddy, or vice versa, making it appear supernatural. She had questions she was hoping the meeting would be able to answer. As if on cue, Carl buzzed the intercom from the front desk. "You guys have got to come see this." Carl's voice crackled through the intercom. "Lyle and Yiska have entered the building." Sarah's pacing halted abruptly, her eyes widening with anticipation. She exchanged a quick glance with Derek, who raised an eyebrow before asking, "Why exactly do we have to go see this?" Carl responded with a giggle. "You'll see." Two people stood out in the reception room, drawing curious glances from those around them. The first she noticed, a huskier male, was wearing an adventurous, dark green vest that had seen better days, while underneath was a faded gray shirt. Perched atop his head was a wide-brimmed, leather hat, the archaeologist kind, while round wire-rimmed reading glasses sat slightly askew on his flushed face. Sarah saw he was holding a manila folder, which seemed to occupy both of their attentions. The other was a female with light olive skin. She wore a red tracksuit with white stripes and had the left leg of her pants rolled up to her knee. Her high lips were set in a disdainful way, while her long dark hair was braided in an elaborate style Sarah's never seen before. Her sharp, observant eyes narrowed as she listened to what her colleague was saying, while her hands were tucked deep into her jacket pockets. As Sarah observed them from the hallway, she noticed the other lawyers whispering and gossiping among themselves. About her, no doubt. There were rumors circulating around the office that the improving Sarah would be the one to handle the case, and it was made obvious when she was granted the vacant office space. "This is them?" Sarah asked, her tone a mix of skepticism and curiosity as she adjusted her glasses. Derek gave a small shrug, his expression unreadable as he pushed through. "Ah, Mr. Wes, I presume." "Mr. Johnson," the man greeted, his voice hoarse and his handshake harder than Sarah would have liked. "Lyle Wes. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with us. Your grandfather spoke very highly of you." Sarah feigned a smile as she shook his hand, glancing at Derek before turning to the other woman. "Yiska," she coldly stated as she shook both of their hands. Sarah couldn't help but feel intimidated immediately by the woman. "All right, Mr. Wes, Miss Yiska," Derek finally said before gesturing to the hallway. "How are you, Lyle? Pops told me a lot about you." "Well, it depends, what have you heard?" Lyle joked back slyly, though his hoarse voice made it difficult to tell. "Well, where do I begin?" Sarah heard Derek answer back with a laugh as their voices trailed off behind the door. She began to follow, but Carl's massive arm reached over and grabbed her dainty shoulder. "You have got to let me listen in on that meeting," Carl said, his eyes wide with anticipation. "What? Why?" Sarah replied, trying to maintain her posture against his surprisingly strong grip, but his enthusiasm was persistent. "Come on, I totally backed you up in there." "Making facial expressions isn't what I'd exactly call backing me up," Sarah argued back while looking around for an excuse. "Besides, who's going to watch the front?" Carl rolled his eyes. "Honey, it's just us." She hadn't noticed that it was a particularly slow day in the office, but quickly realized the other lawyers were staring at her and talking. About her, no doubt. "All right, you can do that intercom thing where you eavesdrop on meetings," Sarah said, snapping herself out of overthinking. "But no interruptions, got it?" "Silent as a mouse," Carl said with a zipping motion. "Now go get that money." Sarah nodded with a confident scowl, which Carl correctly told her to not do because it made her look constipated, before following Derek into his office. "Me, Drew and Chuck go way back," Sarah could hear Lyle say as she approached her office door. "Not going to lie, I expected a bigger office from Drew's grandkid." "That's because this isn't my office," Derek responded as he eyed Sarah entering. "Please meet Sarah Newsom." This is her office, and she will be in charge of your case. She will be your primary point of contact moving forward. Sarah sensed that Lyle and Yiska appeared disappointed as Derek got up from her chair, making room for her to sit. All right, Mr. Wes, Miss Yiska, Sarah began, her tone all businesslike to invigorate herself. Let's see what you've got. Ah, not so fast, Newsome, Derek interjected smoothly, raising a hand. Mr. Wes has a question for you before we get into all that. Sarah blinked. Huh. Lyle leaned back slightly, a knowing smile on his face. Before we dive into the evidence, we want to know something important, just so we're not wasting each other's time. Sarah scrunched her face, perplexed. She turned to Derek, who had now pulled up a seat next to her. Sure, what's your question, Mr. Wes? Lyle Wes. Lyle is fine, he affirmed with a hoarse laugh before continuing. Have you ever experienced anything supernatural, Miss Newsome? Sarah blinked, taken back by the question. When you say supernatural, what do you mean specifically? Like, spirits, entities. Lyle began, lifting a finger each time he named something, jinn, oni, voodoo? The afterlife, perhaps. What he means is, do you believe in ghosts? Yiska clarified bluntly, though her tone made it sound intimidating. Derek, ever the composed lawyer, leaned forward with a small, indulgent smile. I believe in the afterlife. Sarah, surprised Derek was entertaining the question, decided she'd offer her own answer. Well, I mean, doctors considered my birth a medical miracle, so sure. But to believe is completely different from what can be proven. Agreed. Belief isn't something that can be handed to you on a silver platter, Lyle interrupted while taking off his glasses, his hoarse voice taking on a more serious tone. It's something experienced. Something that shakes your understanding of reality. Yiska leaned forward, her voice steady and filled with conviction. Many cultures across the world believe in spirits and the afterlife because of traditions, folklore, or religious teachings that span generations. Lyle continued, from the ancestral spirits in African traditions, the concept of reincarnation in Hinduism, to the belief in ghosts in Western cultures, these ideas are universal. He paused, his voice low. But there's a significant difference between belief and experience. Many people may believe in the supernatural, but only a slim few have ever had a direct encounter. And of those few, an even smaller number possess the ability to interact with the spirits. Lyle continued to explain that, throughout history, various cultures have held the belief that there are ways to access the spirit realm. From the shamans of Siberia, who entered trances to communicate with spirits, to the druids of ancient Europe, who were believed to possess mystical knowledge, these traditions all revered those who could bridge the gap between the physical and spiritual realms. Even here, Yiska added, with certain tribes. Chiefs have been chosen because of their unique connection to the spiritual world, for guidance from their ancestors. However, over time, these spiritual leaders began to face exploitation, Lyle explained, his tone taking a grim turn. Whoever was in power soon realized the potential of the spiritual realm for their own gain. Through their connections with the spirit realm, these practitioners could access ancient knowledge, forbidden magic, and even dark truths. Yiska stared at Sarah, the gravity of her words hanging in the air. Even down to the shadow realm, where the most evil of souls reside, those who could interact with the spirits unwillingly became tools of power-hungry leaders. Sarah quirked her eyebrow. What do you mean? Yiska leaned forward, her eyes reflecting the seriousness of her next words. Imagine someone communicating with the spirits of long-dead advisors, generals, or even enemies. Someone who can bring knowledge from the spirit realm back into the living. Well, that could potentially change the course of history, Derek responded coolly. Yiska turned to him. Exactly. An arms race began for spiritual leaders. To protect these secrets, to abuse spiritual powers, to access the spirit realm, with disastrous consequences. Lyle leaned in, adding, forcing open the doors to the spirit realm would sometimes allow malignant spirits to re-enter the human realm. This reckless tampering created chaos, with spirits possessing individuals or taking physical form and wreaking havoc. Only when weakened and photographed can we capture and Hold on, whoa, time out, Sarah started, making a tea with her hands. Let's rewind a bit, Tibadnai where's dash. Stop that, Newsome. Sorry. No, seriously, Sarah continued, using her hands now to emphasize her points. Spirit realm? Shadow realm? Photographs? What are we even talking about here? And you dash, Sarah pretentiously bobbed her finger at Lyle, as if the gesture was jogging her memory. You were on CBN back in the day, right? Lyle smiled. I was. She recognized Lyle as the late-night correspondent who went on rants about the fourth dimension, aliens, cryptids, and secret societies. Mainly there for entertainment purposes, mainstream media finally had enough and society canceled Lyle when he began to accuse the government of various cover-ups. Huh, and now you're working in social media? Sarah said, putting it all together. Makes sense. The videos we upload on the internet are fake, Yiska interjected, her voice steady. We're not denying that. Oh, Sarah answered sarcastically, her one eyebrow raised. Please explain. All those locations, Lyle elucidated, aren't haunted. That's why he acts the way he does, because there's nothing paranormal about it. Just abandoned and creepy. Sarah watched as Lyle grabbed his phone and played clips of Avery trolling. The first video was him setting the camera down in a clearing, the view only capturing a small portion of the open area. The camera angle shook as he was seen trying to balance it on a tree stump before walking out of the frame. Then he'd come screaming back into view with a look of exaggerated terror. If something's out here, I'm waiting. He could be desecrating an ancient burial ground, Lyle muttered, watching another video of Avery now performing mock ritual dances in what looked like a burial ground. He's not, Yiska retorted. Trust me, I would know. Why are you showing us this? Sarah asked, annoyed. Because, Lyle began, we wanted to show you why we did it. This is what drives engagement on FaceTube, what pays us. For every 1,000 views, we get paid by FaceTube from advertisers. He turned his phone back around and began pressing the screen. We need to do this so that it can finance what we really do. Without it, we wouldn't be able to travel, to investigate the supernatural. Lyle turned his phone to show another video. This time, showing Avery in a more serious light. The camera focused on a dimly lit room where a woman was resting in bed. Avery sat nearby with his eyes closed, visibly struggling against what appeared to be large specks of dust. Orbs. Look at this. Lyle pointed to the screen, where the orbs would subtly bounce off Avery. Suddenly, the scene became chaotic as the room erupted in what Sarah can only describe as violent energy. Lights flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls, and the camera shook violently. Objects in the room rattled and shifted, as if being manipulated by invisible hands as Avery was tossed back by what appeared to be nothing, followed by a sudden flash from an unseen camera. Suddenly, the woman on the bed rose, gasping for air with eyes wide with bewilderment. This is what we're really about, Lyle explained as he pulled several photographs and laid them on the table. The investigations, the exorcisms, the confrontations with real, dangerous spirits. That's what the Ghost Sees Ghost team is. The other stuff is for show. His ability to engage in the spirit realm is real. Yiska added, her eyes narrowing. Exceptional. Unique, even. How do you know? Sarah challenged again. She glanced over at Derek, who was visibly pleased, and continued. It's not like you can access this so-called spirit world. Yiska exchanged a look with Lyle, causing Sarah to tilt her head. Right. She smirked, the first time Sarah saw her express any other emotion besides boredom, before she looked over at Lyle and nodded. Well, Lyle started with a cough, adjusting himself as he reached into his vest pocket. It just so happens that you're in the presence of the last spirit shaman of the Paui tribe, one of the originators of the ghost dance movement. He pulled out a slightly worn document and presented it to Derek, who gingerly accepted. Oh, and the chief. Chief. But you're so young to lead a tribe. Fascinating, Derek stated as he rubbed his chin. The document was encased in a protective plastic sleeve with signs of frequent handling. Bold letters at the top read, Certificate of Tribal Enrollment, with the emblem of the Poi tribe prominently displayed with bold letters. Tribe would be generous. Yiska replied modestly as she examined her nails. There's only a handful of us left. Sarah leaned into the table, now more focused on the situation. So, you're saying that you can see spirits too? I can, Yiska replied, her attention still on her nails. Or was it those beautiful, intricate rings she had on? The Poi tribe have long been revered for our spiritual practices. My direct ancestors played a crucial role helping build a connection to the spirit world through the ghost dances rituals. Then were you there? Sarah urged. On the night of Teddy Williams' death? Lyle and Yiska shared a look before Yiska explained. We were not. Damn it, Sarah thought, that would have been too easy. Then how are you sure that Avery didn't kill him? Derek inquired, looking at them both individually. It could have been an accident. Yiska sighed and looked at Derek. It's not in his nature. He's a lot of things, don't get me wrong. He can be childish, rude, womanizing, self-centered. Condescending, materialistic, vain, an asshole, Lyle contributed, using his fingers each time he mentioned another characteristic of his. Yiska nodded to Lyle's contributions. But murderer? Never. Avery came to the music festival for a vacation, not for work. Or so we thought. She then slid a photograph to Sarah, who picked it up cautiously. What's this? A spirit, Yiska explained, causing Sarah to drop it. Captured in a photograph. Derek picked it up and examined the streaks of smoke. Why is it a photograph? And this quality, horrible. There's a reason why these old-fashioned view cameras were thought of to be able to photograph spirits, Lyle stammered as he took the photograph back. It's because they can. But in doing so, they trap them in the photograph. Avery mailed us this while here in Las Vegas, and that was the last contact we had of him. Then we dispose of them during the full moon ritual. Which is? Sarah asked. Yiska explained that the full moon ritual, which follows the full moon cycle, is a time when they have heightened spiritual connections and are able to send the malignant spirits back into the spirit realm. She explained the ritual must occur during the hours of midnight to 3 a.m., and through the use of a ceremonial pyre, they burn the photograph and banish the creature. Which happens to be tonight. Lyle pushed several other photographs closer to her, which Sarah noted were of better quality. Derek's remark must have offended Lyle. Tonight? Sarah asked, looking at one particular image that was a speck of dust particles. You'll be seeing for yourself, Derek answered, plucking the photograph from Sarah's hand. You will join them tonight for the full moon ritual. It'll be a good starting point. Wouldn't it be easier if we just bailed him out, Derek? Then, we can ask him for ourselves, Sarah suggested. Derek shook his head, sighing. It's not that simple, Newsom. Avery has been denied bail due to the severity of the charges and the high-profile nature of the case. However, as senior partner, I can arrange for a motion to reconsider bail and potentially post it ourselves. But before we do that, I would like more evidence on our end. Sarah raised an eyebrow. More evidence? Yiska nodded. The nature of his defense, claiming to have seen an evil spirit kill someone, makes it even more complicated. We understand that we need to provide tangible evidence that supports his claims. We've discussed it already. That it begins with the ritual. Sarah sighed, the reality of the situation sinking in as she took the picture again. So, we need to prove his innocence while he's still behind bars and gather enough evidence to make a strong case for his bail. Fun. The more she looked at it, the more the photograph streaks of smoke eerily resembled a person, and it bothered her throughout the day. The blurred, spectral features created an unsettling sense of familiarity in her mind, making it impossible for Sarah to shake. Whether it was lunch in Derek's office talking about the case, or looking into Avery's background in her office, she couldn't stop thinking about that photograph. The only time she was able to bury the thought was when she randomly stumbled upon an Avery video on FaceTube, giving more details into his background. A channel called Those Before They Were Famous explored Avery's background. It started harshly, revealing he was relentlessly bullied in his childhood by beginning with how, in Korean culture, mental health issues often carried a significant stigma. His condition was seen as a mark of shame when rumors began to spread that he was seeing a brain specialist for seeing ghosts. Before he knew it, Avery's family were ostracized from the Korean community and treated as outcasts. Even family friends, who tried to stand by them through the whole ordeal, slowly grew withdrawn.